All right. Hello and welcome to another episode. We'll see if someone joins. And if you've watched any of these before, my point isn't necessarily to get a huge audience. My point is actually to get a recording. And if I learn something along the way and someone else learns something along the way, or someone can jump in and see where I'm making a mistake, I think that sort of thing is welcome. So, um, first off, this is going to be about the developer experience, what it's like to onboard and adopt a new tool. And basically, what you're going to witness here is more or less my first half hour or so. Presumably, the first 5 minutes it would take me to get up and running with a Hello World, and see what that experience is like, and see where there's areas for improvement. So that is the point of what I'm about to do. So, by way of introduction, my name is Jason, and I do work in the developer experience space. And since I am looking at products that were created by others, tools, libraries, SDKs, with the intention of adopting them in one of my projects, first I have to learn a little bit about it and see if it meets my needs, right? So the end result is I'm not here to offer like a complete editorial critique, take down of anyone's product. So if someone does chime in on the chat or anything else, or in the comments, this is a reminder to be kind. Not every product is perfect, and it's because it does take a lot of work to get a developer tool to the place it needs to be. There's only so much time in the day. Often we will prioritize features and functionality that we need, because if it doesn't work and it doesn't work reliably, how easy it is to use wouldn't necessarily matter. But the best products are well designed, right? All the way through and through. Not only does it have to solve the problem, it has to be easy to use. So my hope is that most of the time we do find things that are easy enough to adopt. And in those cases, we should celebrate the things that are done right, because that means there's something we can learn from it and apply in our own work. In other cases, even if something doesn't work, and it may come across like a critique or a criticism, I think those are really good opportunities to learn from and say, like, okay, this was not as effective. This is not something I should do in my next attempt. So, in the spirit of the idea here, just to give a little bit of sense. There's this idea in communications or marketing, advertising, that you only have 3 seconds to make an impression, 30 seconds to get your message across, right? Like that's why a commercial break is the way it's structured very often. And in an API Days talk in 2012, it was sort of posited, hey, what if we apply that same kind of logic to developer experience and developer APIs as a litmus test to whether or not they are a degree of effective in terms of onboarding or adoption. So, with that idea in mind, and I've heard a few echo this idea that you have 3 seconds to understand what the API is for, 30 seconds to be able to get started, find an entry point, and really 3 minutes to really make it a positive impression when someone signs up for an account and executes a call to use a result. I think in my day-to-day work of building things, that's very aggressive. I can't think of many things I can do within 3 minutes, going from zero, not knowing anything about it. But there is this sort of myth that, yeah, within 5 minutes, 3 minutes, people should be able to get to Hello World. And so this is sometimes measured as the time to Hello World within developer platforms or self-service, product-led growth, those types of domains. 5 minutes is aggressive. So what you're going to witness here, again, sort of keeping with the 333 theme, is I'm probably going to spend around 30 minutes. This is going to be the first 30 minutes to an hour of my experience trying a new tool, something maybe I've heard of, but I've never really used or seen. And part of this notion is in evaluating or doing like a DX type audit, is that to improve adoptability, yeah, you could throw it over the wall and test in production, have some customer use it. Presumably, you have quality control in-house that's also evaluating, does it explode or not? It does at least some minimal smoke testing. Well, this notion of customer zero is really about saying, hey, what is the end experience like? And it can be done really effectively in companies if you find someone technical enough that can use a product that the organization builds, but maybe doesn't work on the team building it, right? So if you have 5 services that are part of your team, will have someone that's working on one of the other 4 evaluate yours, and vice versa, or pull in people from DevRel or customer success and some of these other types of organizations, because they'll come in, being technical, being in the industry, quite frankly, they may not know how to use your own product, and that might be okay, or they might be trying to evaluate some other aspect of it. And I think this happens quite a bit, where we're trying to adopt a new tool while also learning a new framework, while also trying out a new technique or a new development process. Especially if we have a greenfield project, that's usually when we try a bunch of new things all at once. So, but the idea is to find someone that doesn't have the intimate knowledge of how it was built. So they don't have that curse of knowledge, and then they can really look at it with fresh eyes. And I think finding someone that can do that really is a blessing, because you get really high quality feedback as a result of it. And if done well, that person is trying to go end to end. So it's really evaluating sample code, documentation, dashboard, user interfaces, GUIs. I mean, it's everything all at once, as well as the way any client SDKs or APIs behave. So, and ideally, you might even get some learning resources as a byproduct. And so I think that's, for those who maybe watch this video, that is what you're seeing here, is a little bit of a byproduct of, okay, this is just me going through learning in public. But ideally, I'm going to have some learning resources that come out the other end as well. And within user experience design, and other, there's this notion of friction logging, the idea of keeping a log of things that not just broken, right? Like if it was a bug, would throw it in a ticketing system like Jira or whatever. Create a GitHub issue. It could be reported if it's a bug, or if it's a missing feature. That's a very easy, clear, like, hey, here's the use case. This is what I'm trying to accomplish. This is missing. What we're really talking about is polish, right? To a certain extent, things that cause frustration, unnecessary complexity, things that are very confusing or unclear how to proceed. All of these things slow someone down from adoption. And if adoption is the goal, you don't want that anything slowing it down, right? You want that time to hello world to be a minimum, so that you have very positive experiences and get the job done. The tool that runs and does the job is the one that's going to be the one that's ultimately adopted and used, especially if someone's evaluating more than one tool. So one of the ways I've done this with others is to ensure that I get that feedback. I will often schedule a meeting and invite someone to participate, and then record the session. So they have a prompt, go do a thing, try to use this new tool in doing it. And then by recording the session, somebody doesn't have to worry about grabbing screenshots, copying error messages, that sort of thing. You have the full session to look back on. Reproduction steps should be easily visible if it all happened on the screen. And then little snippets can be replayed, or create little, even sometimes learning tutorials. There's lots of benefits of having that as a recording as well. So the short story is, hey, this is why I'm streaming this, is because this is effectively my recording. Maybe someone chimes in and says, hey, you should look at this instead. And I think that could be very helpful feedback for me. Even without that feedback, though, I've got a sense of what I'm trying to accomplish here, and I'll have a record of it as well. I'm doing this as often as I can. It is a little sporadic, but generally shooting for Monday, Wednesday, Friday at around 3:30 p.m. Pacific time. Again, kind of sticking with the theme, and I'm streaming it out. And again, this is sort of me saying, hey, as long as I don't have any scheduling conflicts, I'm going to take a step out and learn a new tool, learn a little bit about it by trying to kick the tires and actually using it to do something. So with that in mind, today I am going to be looking at Sanity.io. I do often produce content in one form or another, documentation, technical documentation, and things that might benefit from having a headless CMS. I've heard Sanity does that. I've never used it before. And so this is going to be my attempt to learn a little bit about it. I am also looking at evaluating some other tools that can help me with my productivity. So hence a couple of other names I've heard recently of products. Rebuild, in the category of web application builders. I don't know. Never really used it. That's the extent of what I know about it at this point. So I'm gonna have to search and learn a little bit more about that on Wednesday, and then on Friday, again, schedule prohibited, allowing. I'm going to be looking at mutable AI again from a code generation standpoint. Is the category I've heard of this one. I don't have any personal anecdotes of anyone using either of these tools. I haven't really asked around, just doing my own kind of evaluation, just see what's out there. So, with that in mind, that's my plan for this week. So, Sanity IO. So let's go see what it's like. So, I'm going to go ahead and get this out of the way and bring in a web browser. I got one somewhere here. There we go. Okay, and then I'll make this a little bit bigger, make it a little bit easier to see. All right. So as I said, I don't know a whole lot about Sanity IO other than it is in the headless CMS space. Usually when evaluating something, I do like to search. So I'm going to search for Sanity IO if I just, because I know the name of it. I can see right off the bat, how the CMS it is in that category. I like to Google something for a couple of reasons. One, it'll pop up any competitors that are paying for AdWords. I don't see anyone else showing up here. And this isn't a promoted result either. So perhaps my search is very specific and good enough. I think it's also helpful for me to see how many results there are. I don't necessarily talk about this too much, but not too many people are going to go beyond the first page or two. But it does give me a sense of, is there a lot of video content? Who's doing the content? Are there a lot of tutorials and things that I could go through? And that sort of thing. So it's showing up in Jamstack. So it gives me a little bit of sense of third-party reviews effectively by the existence of other types of content. So this to me suggests right off the bat, there is a fair number of other hits, so that it lends a little bit more credibility to a set. It's interesting to see that there are more sponsored, maybe competitors further down the screens. And then like this is the other way, right? Is to go read reviews. So like if I go and look at Reddit, I might go and see what a bunch of strangers on the internet think. Again, with the idea that maybe I'm not working with anyone who's used it to give me, their own perspective. All right, so here, there's not a whole lot of comments in the React.js community, which is, if I recall, 371,000 members, but we really only got 5 comments. But none of them are overly, pro or con. I've done actually a project once doing sentiment detection within technical communities and Reddit, actually using the Reddit API to pull down the comments, doing a sentiment analysis of it, and then judging, overall positive, negative of a score. So it might be interesting to have this tool. I'm sure somebody else has built that sort of thing too, but I don't have something right at the off the, in this case. So all that said, I'm going to go take a look at the website next. Now that I've seen a little bit around the community, and I think one of the reasons I called this "Let's Go" is I can get into it's very easy to find yourself in sort of an analysis paralysis as well. And if evaluating, like if I were, and I'm building an application and I do need to manage content. There's a status quo of how I'm doing it now, and then there are, hopefully at least 2 or 3 other companies or products or libraries in the space. One's probably open source, and others are paid. That I have to evaluate and decide which of these should I use, and maybe even justify it. And that's why I say it's like I don't have 5 minutes to make that recommendation. I have more time than that, but I'm probably not going to spend, multiple hours banging my head against something, that in and of itself would tell me that's not the product for me. So that's the spirit here too. So let's see. So make content your competitive advantage. I'm not sure what that's telling me, but you can see that, I do often look to what companies are using a particular product. There are some best practices, I suppose, in terms of what companies are allowed to use in areas like this. So I don't know for sure. This could be one intern who signed up for this at one point might be enough for some companies to put this in their commercial website as, hey, we're used by this company because some intern signed up once 5 years ago. I'm not saying that that's the case here with Sanity, but it has to be taken with a grain of salt. But generally, seems pretty reasonable to assume that if they at least put some care into showing their actual customers, and again, that could be very high, extensive use or very little. But just skimming through here, I don't know. I tend not to spend too much time on the marketing side of pages. I do skim just a little bit. I don't know if anyone else handles it differently than that, but yeah, generally I'm just looking at headings. And if there's some numbers, it may not even be the numbers I'm interested in so much as what the criteria are to help sort of give me a little bit more of an impression of how things are positioned. Very often at this point, I might be in one of two scenarios as well. I might have some executive or some engineering leader who maybe has come and just said, go use this. End of story. Like, we're going to use this. That's a possibility. One scenario I've been in. Another scenario is, hey, we are using this. Why don't you go get yourself familiar? And then we're going to have you on a project in a sprint or two. So that's another scenario in which I've signed up for products. The third scenario is making a technical, as a tech lead, project lead, whatever. You may have to evaluate a couple alternatives, and so going out and just trying to kick the tires and seeing how comfortable I am with what I find. So those are typically the three scenarios. So coming in here, I might be a little bit more inclined to continue exploring. I'm probably here in the sense of, no, I know I'm going to have to sign up to really evaluate this. So I could continue looking around. So some of the areas, if I wasn't convinced yet, I had to sign up yet, I might be looking at pricing and see, particularly this is the thing I'm going to be looking at is, am I even going to be able to evaluate this or not? And if there's no free option or I have to put a credit card in, I'm not sure yet if I'm willing to go to bat for a particular product, right? I mean, yes, I have a corporate, in my day job, this is not my day job item here, but in my day job, yes, I have a corporate credit card. I am authorized to make small purchases of services that we might use, or at least to initiate them and roles that I've been in. But that doesn't mean I want to. I don't want to have to justify an expense report. Why did I sign up for this thing? Until I know for sure I want to use that thing. But that's one reason I definitely appreciate that there is a freemium tier of some sort. And this is up to 20 users, one data set, unlimited content types and locales, workspaces. I'm not sure what they consider workspaces yet, but versus a data set, but that's okay. Hosted real-time content database, live previews and visual editing, and generous usage quota. It's unclear what that means. And then as we start scaling up to 50 users, and it's unclear users, is that like would an app that's making queries, does that count as a user, or are we actually talking about people who are editing content as a user? I don't know yet. We'll have to figure that out. Multiple user roles suggest that this next tier up is getting into that now. When you bring in the rest of the team, or a content team, what the 2 data sets, again, not quite clear yet what that is. Comments, presumably to build up a workflow around content. Scheduled publishing, AI assistant, additional usage quota, and pay as you go for higher usage. So I guess I could go in here. This goes into a little bit more detail on what those things are. Multiplayer presence, real-time editing. The other reason is right here. This is actually one of the benefits of looking at a pricing page is it does also give me some insight into what the feature set is and which ones anyone believes to be valuable. Different content types and locales. I mean, I'm probably not going to be, in my app doing internationalization just because user base. Well, I'll be using the same language, but it's nice to know that features like that exist. Um, Query support, portable text. What does portable text mean in this context? I don't know. Mutations and patching. Likewise, not sure what that means. So that might be a thing I'm going to have to learn. Content source maps, private data sets. What does private data sets versus non-private imply? I mean, I guess, yeah. I mean, if I were managing my intranet versus a public website, okay. And then some HA type features for enterprises. It's good to know. Open source editor built with React. So that's an interesting idea. I hadn't really thought about this side of it. For me, I think is all editing would be done by not by the public, so to speak, but this suggests that it could be. It could be a publicly editable data set. That's where the user side of things gets weird. Um, anyway, roles, unique attributes, 10,000 documents. Okay, this is, I think, the usage I was kind of curious about. And presumably the documents could be short or long. I think the reason I am interested in using a headless CMS is a product I used a long, long time ago called TwiddlyWiki. It was one of my favorite ways of presenting information as a wiki because it didn't, it was a document, but it was in some ways it was about reassembling documents from subcomponents. And I think that's one of the ways I'm looking at the headless CMS solution is I'm not presenting a single document. This document is made of multiple parts, and those multiple parts could be used in other documents and reordered and reassembled so that I can basically refactor content. That is one of my use cases for this type of solution. So that's what I am evaluating. And then there's a bunch of other considerations. If I were doing a full eval, and eventually I might here, I am probably go in a little bit more detail, but that's why I find pricing pages particularly useful. One is to make sure I can actually complete my evaluation. So like if I had to put a credit card in or I had to immediately pay money, and I think there was another company in this space that was in that scenario, well, that ended my evaluation with them right away. So within 3 minutes, they were done because I couldn't get an entry point. Certainly not an evaluation. If I couldn't find out any alternatives, I might go back to them. But if there was another company like this that offers a free onboarding and then I can go evaluate and say, yes, this does meet my needs, the other one would have to have such a compelling feature set for me to even go back and reevaluate whether I should consider them or not. So that's something to keep in mind on this. I do tend to like to look at the navigation, not because I'm going to click anything, but again, it just gives me a little bit of an overview of where things are. So, that there's this term Sanity Studio. So presumably they have sort of, I'm going to think of this off the top of my head, like a WordPress or Drupal backend where I can edit content. It's just not publishing it to the public website side of things. Real-time collaboration, content querying, localization. Okay. I do see a product demo that could be, sometimes that's a really helpful way of evaluating what a thing is. If I could just go ahead and start using it. So I might go ahead and, well, this is, hey, this happens. It's unfortunate because it does, give you maybe a bad impression. So I've been guilty of this as well, though. If you set up a demo somewhere, you do need, even though it's a demo, it's not a product. It is a best practice probably to have still CI/CD, some smoke tests that are making sure systems are up. There are some that we use for like high availability systems, and there are some less expensive status pages that can just check for demos and things like that. So I know I've had to do that because I'd be caught with, oh, sales was working with someone and the demo went down. That's never a good place to be. Use cases. I don't need to go look at their use cases, right? Because it's one of those. Yeah, I think this episode maybe is a little bit different in that I wouldn't normally give this much analysis on what I think about all areas of this. I probably should have already just created an account and tried to get started. I haven't started the clock yet on this one, but it is interesting to see that there's some integrations, although I'm not entirely sure what the integrations might be. But these use cases and solutions. I do often think that we put these on web pages not because we expect anyone to read them, but that it's search engine food, so to speak, right? I already briefly described what I'm trying to build to a certain extent, but I didn't talk about like the domain or anything like that. But like, if I am in the e-commerce space, am I going to come read their e-commerce guide, or is it that I already know that space well enough that it's just the information here I don't know. I'm probably just not the right target audience for this type of webs. A lot of websites do this. I very rarely look at them though. The developer section is usually where I'm going to be, although they have this resource section, which creates a little bit of ambiguity of what I might want over here. Although I see that the blog is under resources. There's a glossary. Case studies can be useful. I think case studies are actually, I mentioned your logos on your front page, but I think the case studies tend to be a little bit even more authentic in terms of, okay, this is someone who's willing to share a little bit about how they're using your product. And the more complex that use case is, or the more aligned it is with my needs, that's great. But like here's I'm not sure which of these I would click on to even know if it was appropriate for the information I need or not. And that's fine. Popular guides. I don't know what that's about. And then the documentation. So maybe I'm gonna hop over to the documentation. Although I do still want to stay here because I do want to go ahead and get started too. And then I'll go back to documentation. I see, this is just an assumption. A lot of documentation sites don't put links to sign up. They probably should, but you might have even noticed there, I already effectively assumed I would have to click the sign up from the main site first, as opposed to from the documentation. And why that's tricky is because of things like attribution and data tracking. And what I mean by that is, so I guess I effectively signed up from the pricing page, even though I had already kind of moved on and I was really getting into the documentation. But before I read too far in the documentation, I wanted to save the link so I could actually go ahead and sign up. I could always go back, obviously. But in some ways, the documentation might be the thing that convinced me, yeah, I'm ready to sign up. But because of my behavior, it's not like, the documentation team here is going to get the credit, even if it's deserved for the sign up. So that's why, tracking and attributing signups gets really messy as to what the cause is. And like the fact of the matter is, I probably heard about Sanity at a conference maybe years ago. Maybe I read a blog post or knew someone who worked there. I really don't remember when I first heard about it, but I knew they were in the space for quite some time. So Anyways, I'm going to move this off screen while I sign up just a little bit. And I'll mention, so it's asking for my name, which I will give, and then my email address. It's, I've seen some companies will ask for a name, some will just go email address only. I've already generated a password in my password manager, so I'm going to just go ahead and use that and create my account. All right. And then I can accept the terms of service. I'm going to move that off for a second again. Okay. Anyway, create your first project with Sanity. And they say it's going to help personalize the experience. I'd like to believe that's true. It's probably, usually it's for demographic purposes. So, oh, I should probably, here, let me reset let's do that. And again, this is why I record, because I could actually get an accurate time if I really cared to. But, so anyway, sorry, I lost my train of thought. Usually these types of questions are about lead scoring, right? Like that's really, so if you're an engineer and watching this video, you may not have seen this side of the business before, or maybe you are on the marketing side watching this video and you know a lot more about it than I do. Either way, I would be interested in learning what you have to say about it. But usually these types of questions are not really here to help personalize the experience for me. They're here to help the company judge how profitable a lead I am for them. So I will sometimes answer these questions in ways that may or may not reflect the reason I'm really here, but the reason I think will at least lead to the situation where I don't have someone in sales calling me. That's usually not how I evaluate. So, like I said, I'm going to evaluate 3 different products already. I don't need to talk to a salesperson or have someone hounding me. So I'm just going to say personal, fluent. What am I building? So it's again, how, maybe this helps me. We'll go ahead and say this for now. All right, and we'll go ahead and create this project. I am not using React. I will be using TypeScript and SvelteKit. Do I get to multi-select? I guess I do. Okay. So there we go. I am, it's actually, that's a good question. Again, that's a lead scoring question, but a really good question for them to ask. And sorry, I clicked through it too fast. But again, that's why I stream this to get the recording, so I can always grab a screenshot later. But whether or not I'm starting from a greenfield project or migrating becomes a really helpful information for someone, right? It's not too often you start with a greenfield project when signing up for technology. Usually you have baggage, right? Whatever technology I'm using or existing decisions that were made or content I have to migrate. I'm actually, with this project, I am in that scenario, but it's, I think, helpful for them to know, because that also judges profitability to a certain extent. Like if I'm migrating from a competitor, I'm probably a little bit more price sensitive, or there was a specific feature I was looking for. So either way, even if it was a salesperson or a product person or an advocate reaching out to me, their question can be a little bit more precise knowing that context. But anyways, all right. So it seems like, there's a little bit of an onboarding experience they've built here. So now the questions have gone through, and now I can initialize a new project, add to an existing app, or clone a template. Um, I find this interesting, right? Like this is a good example of why I said those questions weren't necessarily designed for me, because immediately here, this is not, I mean, maybe it would be okay, but I already said I was going to use SvelteKit and TypeScript. So I'm not building a React app. So suddenly this is maybe not exactly what I'm looking for. However, it does say that this is what's recommended. So I mean, maybe it is using those answers either way. Um, so that's that. And then, or cloning a template. I suppose this is the other side of evaluating, I'd be curious how other people do it in that. I'm not sold already that this is the product I need. So I'm not ready to install the dependency into my project yet. I still am kicking the tires. So suddenly this isn't as helpful for me quite yet, because I'm not ready for that level of commitment, right? Like I'm still dating. I'm not ready to marry yet. Um, so with that, I am still trying to get started. But this is really trying to drive me to using it already. But I feel like, okay, this is maybe helpful, but maybe I really do want to go look at a template. And I do see the Svelte logo here. So let's go take a peek at that. Um, okay. Minimal examples to get you started with your favorite framework. So I do appreciate the amount of effort that goes into creating these. And are these are templates? I thought, I was curious if they were going to be like blog posts or something, because I see almost authors next to them. Um, you know, but to see that Astro, Next.js, SvelteKit is here also suggests that these weren't just created, you know, 10 years ago, and it's just been kicking around the same old jQuery app or whatever. So let's see, a minimal SvelteKit site with a Sanity Studio. Um, Interesting. So I am tempted to go give this a try, just because I want to be able to see my own hello world type thing. But if I go back to the documentation for a moment, so before committing to this path, I want to just double check and take a step back and see if this is where I want to go. So it's like, I guess I expected to, a lot of times, maybe it's not a lot of times, but sometimes I'll just get dumped into a dashboard. That's not the case here. Um, maybe if I go manage project and members, maybe this is how I get to the dashboard. Yeah, it is. So I think as a new sign up, it was appropriate to take me through some sort of guide, even though here at the tail end of the guide, I didn't quite get to the place where, or maybe I did, because I jumped over and started exploring the templates. So it was the right terminal state, but it didn't take me all the way to the dashboard. Or I guess you could argue it did, because it was a button here. So maybe that's working quite well as an onboarding experience. Um, and I think reason I say that is I would expect to get what is the easiest way for me to start editing content based on how I'm thinking the system works, is for me to be able to go and actually use the dashboard to add some content, and then a way for me to view it. So in some ways, I almost felt like maybe I should have been able to see exactly, sort of the comment I made maybe 10 minutes ago, almost expecting to see like the WordPress or Drupal backend. But the fact is, the front end is going to be API powered, so it could be whatever. But that doesn't mean it couldn't show me an example of what those two things are, and then say, then now here's the API that built that thing, and then go off and use it. And so I guess that's where, I expected to get left, but it is cool that there are these templates to use. And like I said, using a bunch of different combinations of technologies. And I know there's a lot of work that goes into creating those. So kudos for actually having a lot of coverage there. And then I think this is the other side of it, which is, or, I signed up for my account, but if I wasn't committed to signing up for the account yet, I probably would have started with this getting started area, um, which does, I like what I'm seeing here right now, just for what it's worth. If I have questions or saying where the community is for me to go, create a project. I don't know where this is going to take me. I guess I'll just find out. Okay, so it would take me probably, let's try that again. Did it redirect me? It redirected me to manage. Okay, I'm not, maybe that would have taken me to sign up for an account. Um, anyways, but what I do like here is it is sort of a choose your own adventure, and there's not too many overwhelming choices. It is a start from a template or watch a video tutorial. And I know people have different preferences. I'm one who does not particularly like watching video tutorials. Um, I don't know why that is. Sometimes I do, but it depends on the product, I think, to a certain extent. So, like, if I'm learning how to use an API, I kind of don't want to watch a video because I want to be able to copy and paste code and modify it and get my hands kind of on it. I think I also want to be able to read text and copy and paste the text and things. So for me, video tutorials are not right, but I know lots of other people that's their first choice. So the fact that it has given me this and not assumed one or the other, I think is actually a pretty smart choice here. Um, and it does seem like there's a crash course, so like a sequence of videos. I'm just kind of curious to go take a peek. I'd be curious what the numbers are behind them too. Like this seems like 5,000 subscribers, 995 upvotes, 60,000 views. That suggests a lot of people prefer going that route. Starting with a template, blog with building a Next.js personal website. This takes me to where I was, right? All of these templates, and so this is where I would be curious to see what kind of those numbers look like for them. But all right, I've spent a lot of time analyzing the website without actually using the product yet. So let's see if I can get a little bit further here. So there's a repository. Um, so it's been a few months since it's been updated, but that's reasonable. So if I go to, oops, I just need to go. I'm going to go ahead and just clone down the project, see what happens. Let me go ahead. I'm actually going to switch over to VS Code here real quick. So I've got the project. Can go into the template. I didn't see what the README said. So Sanity Studio. I haven't seen Sanity Studio yet, I don't think. I think that goes back to this dashboard. I was expecting maybe I would have landed there or something, but we'll come back to that. Or maybe I misunderstand what Studio is. How to fetch content, how to render block content as portable text, Sanity Studio to create and edit content, crop and render images. That's a good lineup. This is not a mono repo setup. Put them both in one repository. Okay, I see what you're saying. Node, Sanity, CLI. Okay. All right, well, let's go ahead and get the dependencies going. And init env. Presumably, I'm going to have to go grab my keys somewhere. So now I have to log in here. Huh. This is, well, maybe this is nice. Let's give it a, oh, okay. Huh. Login successful. Nice. Cool. I mean, I guess I've seen things like that, but that was a really nice kind of experience. I didn't have to go copy and paste my keys and credentials. It just kind of worked. And then, interesting. Okay. And did it finish? I guess I was supposed to select it. No, anyway, use the default data set configuration. Yes. Okay. So I guess that was everything. And then I should be able to run dev, right? Okay, maybe. So it's not npm run dev. Oh boy, prefix your environment variables. So something's not right. Oops. So there's just a post install. Oh, because I have to go into each individual one. Okay, gotcha. Oh yeah, so the following commands are meant to be run in both the app and studio folders. Okay. So do I do the app first or the studio first? I don't know. I guess we'll do the app. All right, so I got to do that again. Although I would, if I could run this again. But presumably, there's the env. I'm just going to source the env. I should only have to do that once. Yeah, let's do that. npm run dev. Now we should be able to open this. Oh, it did not. I guess it wanted. So, do I follow the instructions or do I try to cheat? Because I would think I should be able to copy the env here. Let's give it a try. Oh, all right. It's not happy. All right. Well, we'll play by the rules. All right. So let's remove that, and then we'll run this again. Yeah. All right. So let's make sure we get the right one. So MMV. No, and we'll use production. Okay. Oh, all right. So this is not happy yet, but maybe it's because I need to do and run the other one first. So let's hop over to Studio. I guess I should run this again. We're doing the MMV one, production. All right. Did I have I really should I have done this the whole time? Did I do that the first time? Yeah, all right. Yeah, forget it. Okay. Um let's see. It's I'm a good example of someone I don't follow instructions well sometimes. So the more complex the instructions are, the more likely something will go wrong, and especially when there's a lot of automation. So, all right, what did I do? Um, let's see. Over here, I did not do an npm install yet, and then yeah. Okay. Um, okay. So Sanity Studio seems to be running. It was interesting. That was a login there, but I'm like I don't have user management or anything set up yet. At least I don't think so. So the only thing here is I don't know what I'm looking at yet. Is there any clarity on what I'm building or what this template removing TypeScript deployments? Yeah. Okay. How to fetch content as data, how to render block content with portable text. I still don't know what portable text is, so I'm going to have to go read about that. I also may still be confused about what Sanity Studio is. So, what does this look like? A real time collaborative application for content creation. Uh, so, is this meant? Okay, so I'm reading this and I'm trying to parse it. So, let me know if I'm not thinking about this the right way, but Sanity Studio is a real-time collaborative application for content creation. It's open source and connects to the hosted content lake. Should I be able to see this in the dashboard? Or is it meant to be like, oh, this is a code that you grab, yeah, and then install yourself? I guess, if I'm thinking enterprise-wise, that might make sense, right? That I'm running this application in my own infrastructure. Yeah, so creating new Sanity Studios. And if I were thinking big and had multiple teams editing multiple websites, each one might have its own instance. I guess I was just I mean there's nothing wrong with that. It's just a surprise to me to a certain extent in that in some ways I expected to be able to come into here and interest. It is a time trial. I didn't realize. Okay. Um, but I expected to be able to come in here and that this would be where I would invite project members, be able to create content, right? Like I got my production data set, edit data set. No, I don't want to do that, but like that I would be able to go and basically just have a hosted version of what I think the studio is here. But that does not seem to be the case. It seems that I do have to go and fork it. So I don't know what desk or vision is, but if I do this and say um, Sanity IO, do I care? So I need a slug. Is a slug's required? December 4th, 2023. Developer experience exploration of Sanity. A main image and a body. This is my show notes, let's say. And if I publish this, document was published. Let's go back to usage. Do I see one member? I'm expecting to see one document somewhere in this data set. But again, I guess I can't see it from here. Assets, this is measured in data, members, documents. So like this is where I would say like, oh, shouldn't I have one document now? If I'm thinking about this the same way. So all content is a post. And maybe this is the other side of it, right? Like this definitely, like if I were creating a blog, this would maybe make sense that there's a title, there's a slug, excerpt, and so on. But I feel like I might hope for a more flexible document structure here. I was expecting maybe an ID that I would reference as opposed to a slug, but the slug's human readable. So that does feel like a nice thing for people who would be editing. Okay, well, hold on. Let's go set up this app. So if I go into app, and then one npm run dev. So I should be able to open this now too. Let's use a new window for this. But this is not happy. This one's not happy. Sanity init env. Nope, I did not forget to. That does not mean I did it correctly. Where's my terminal? I'm gonna go take a peek at this env file and see if something makes sense as incorrect. Excuse me. So this is the app that's not working. So I'm looking at my M file. All it really has is a project ID and a data set, and that's not anything secret. So I don't think so anyway. A project ID and a data set. Although it's because it's a public data set. So being able to write to it, I would hope, is protected. But being able to read it isn't that big a deal if you have the key. So if I'm just going to take a peek at Studio. I'm not going to put that on the screen yet, but yeah. And then I look at the env on the server side, and on the server side, I don't see a private key for storing things. So does that mean anyone that knows this project ID can read and write to this store? Okay, and local. It's right there on the screen. Okay. Oh, well, that's just um let's do not add secrets. It's source controlled. Is that a note for? That's not a note for me. That's a note for the maintainer of the template, right? Because I mean, I would expect that to be in good ignore anyway, right? Yeah. Um. Hmm. So why is this app not working? 500 error. Yeah. In the meantime, I do often take a peek at this too because I do find the messaging or communications interesting, and especially when it's done well. Um, this just thanks for installing. Um, it's an interesting way of discussing it because it's you know I'm thinking of Sanity as a set of APIs that let me use a real time database for content, right? Um, but this says installing. I don't know. It's just a interesting choice of words because it maybe suggests the way they think about it. Um, Visit the project dashboard to invite collaborators, check on usage, or configure your plan. Um, or go give feedback elsewhere. This is another one. I mean, I've seen this side of things. I mean, it's a lot of work to maintain these email flows and to provide good, high quality information at the right time. So, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that messaging. It was just a interesting terminology choice. But anyways, back to this. So this is me still trying to get to Hello World, and we're over an hour now. I I feel like I've hit a little bit of a snag here. Um, so it's like, I mean, I'm storing data, which is good, and I get a sense of what this is. So maybe to confirm my hypothesis, if I go and search for Sanity Studio, okay, here's where the competition's going a little bit more. Um, but um, visual editing brings speed. Um, right, like, okay, here's a good one. This looks like what this does, right? Yeah. So content, is this what, so is this the data set? So there's a data set called post, or is the data set my developer XP project? Um, I've mentioned this with other products. I do feel like one of the things I would benefit from seeing, and it might be somewhere in the docs, is a little bit of a architectural overview. Like, what are, I saw there's a glossary. I could go look at the glossary, I guess, under the resources, but I think an architectural map of what the main components are and their terms and how the data flow is would really help me onboard a little bit faster. Um, I don't see that too often in other products, so I don't, that's nothing on Sanity here, um, for not having something like that, because it may be here somewhere. I just haven't seen it yet. But I haven't read the overview, so let's go look at the overview. Core concepts, collaborative interface for editors and content creators. Okay, so I guess we kind of figured that out. The content lake is the real-time data store. Um, I'm still kind of confused by the. I was expecting to see an API key somewhere, and so they must have a different model here. Um, and I probably gave away my secrets to my free account, um, to anyone watching this video later. So I'll probably see all kinds of fun content in there. Um, or maybe I'll rotate it. If the dashboard lets me do that. Um, hmm. So anyway, so it does feel like, okay, great. We're halfway there. In that we do have this interface up and running. Um, I think I'm sort of surprised by how some of this is constrained. Um, but it's not necessarily a bad way or anything. It's just okay. I got a title, I got a slug, I got one image, an excerpt, and a body, which is probably, quite honestly, that is probably at least 80% of the time all that I would need. Um, I think maybe I was expecting it to be a little bit more like a document store, um, that I could define or add additional types of fields to. Um, and maybe I still can. Maybe I just haven't explored that yet. Like in the scenario where I need a mobile image as well as a desktop image or something like that, right? Ideally, it just, I don't know, something like that. I guess I maybe I don't even need it. Maybe I'm just assuming I need some variety here. Um, and similarly, I think, back to the localization example, in some cases, I may want to have like AB, so like this might be my, and this is the other reason why I'm looking at the headless approach to things for some content, is I might want to do this where I have a slight variation in some content, because one might be targeted, back to that learning example. Some people want to watch videos. Some people might want to start with a sample template. Other people might want to go read a concept guide. It goes through top to bottom. I think, yeah, the the issue then becomes like, so like in this scenario, if I were trying to do this, um, I kind of want to see these next to another in a slightly different way. It's not that big of a deal, but it is just no published edits. But that would be an example where I'm thinking I would want to be able to customize this a little bit in terms of what fields are editable. Again, with the notion that I'm not doing this as just a blog replacement, or even a website CMS replacement where everything is a post or a page. That's not how I was thinking about content. Certainly, by drifting to headless CMS, as I wanted to do more shenanigans, for lack of a better word, like repackaging content based on the audience, repackaging content based on other factors that come to mind. And yes, I could go use Optimizely or Telium or something else to do A/B tests and things like that. But for me, it would be less about a test so much as maybe I already know for some segments I want to present information in a certain way. So therefore, do want my content to be micro content that I can repackage. So that creates some scenarios where let's go try Sanity.io. I might have variation A and B, or I might have variation main, and then like thinking of it as like content branching, where I do want to repackage things up in certain scenarios. I think the building blocks are here, the way I'm thinking about it, but it seems a little bit more constrained than I was expecting. But that's an example of my evaluation criteria where I'm like, hey, here's some things I'm thinking I want to be able to do with it. Can I? It's inconclusive, but my impression so far is that's not the case. So I'll have to do a little bit more digging on that front. I'm not quite to Hello World yet, though, right? So, I mean, I'm partway there. I have information I've stored. I haven't seen exactly how this works yet, and I'm getting an error. So let's go spend a little bit more time trying to debug what's going on here. So if I do npm run dev, it's erroring out. So why is it error when evaluating SSR module? Failed to import Sanity TS. That's not really helping me. An error message isn't making sense to me. Does it make sense to anyone else? All right, we're gonna have to look at how this works. So in the app code, what kind of app is this again? Is this a React app? No, I chose Svelte, right? So if I come in here, it's the types that are failing to initialize. Is that right? Yeah, public sanity dataset and project ID from env static public. Do I need to? Yeah, no, it's still not happy. So what's next? I could go. Let me go see if anyone else is having this trouble. Let's go back to those templates. How do I find them? Here we go. Let's go back to the repository and just see. There are some issues. All right, so project output path. Oh, that's unfortunate. This is someone who was having questions back on July 16th. Um, and did not get good results. See, is there? Where was that? Read me again. Maybe is this another scenario where I didn't run the full set of instructions and maybe it'll work this time? So, no. Um, unknown init, type init. Can I do npx sanity init? This step I'm not sure about, right? Because I don't remember doing that. But let's maybe go ahead and see if that makes a difference. It does make a difference. All right. No, oh, it makes something different. Let's see, which one is this? 5173. But it's still giving me an internal error. Oh, no, there it is. Okay. There we go. Oh, and an error again. Why is that? Well, that all said, I'm gonna it's not perfect, but I think that's an app problem, not a sanity problem. It did fetch the content. It might be expecting the fact that I put in like a body or something, right? Um, a template can't be perfect for all things to everyone. So this is my show notes for developers, right? Like if I do something like that, and then, oops, I probably this is my show notes for non-developers. Let's go ahead and publish this. What if I go back here? Push this, go back and reload this page. Both have excerpts now. Do I still get the error? Yep, I still get an error. So maybe it's the missing images. I could do an image or something like that and see if that fixes it. But again, maybe my objective is not to get this template to work. I think it was to get a feel for how it all behaves. So I do want to see exactly, how is this actually working behind the hood, like where, so here's libutils sanity. So it's all of the interactions, the non-svelte kit type behavior. So ignore how the front end works. I want to know how it's calling the back end. The database or the data lake or whatever terminology that was being used here. And to that, this is an older API version, so maybe that's not recommended anymore. If I go back here, so that is interest, there is one interesting behavior, so like I again, I do like this, but it does have one glaring thing I just realized now, which is, okay, I could go watch a video, I could start from a template. It led me down that choose door A or door B, but there was actually a door C here, but you only realize it if I click on the nav on the left, which is, and you know, personally, this is how I prefer to learn, is to like actually see step one, step two, show me what I need to know, so I can follow a set of instructions and sort of think through each one with enough time. And that's why I say it's like the idea that I signed up for something and am successful in 5 minutes does not feel realistic. Um, but okay. Because this is, this goes through the concepts of what I need to know. Otherwise, I'm just playing around with some app that someone put time into, but without enough context to really know, wait, why is this here? What is the right words? I saw these other words you used. Is that what this is? There's a lot of speculation there where um, it's just me meandering. And there was my alarm. Um, Whereas over here, it actually, explains a little bit more. And I guess it's a, do you prefer to learn by reading a book, or do you prefer learning by like just trying a bunch of problems and seeing where you get? Um, so I think the jury's still out here. I'm gonna say I got to Hello World. I did a lot of talking before starting this clock, but even starting the clock, that was about 50 minutes. So it definitely took me a little bit more time than maybe I spent on some of the other products to get to a Hello World. Um, and really, I think I need to go through this getting started and really continue my evaluation. But I am going to stop there. Next time, maybe someone will join and find this slightly amusing, and feel free to post a comment if you see me doing something wrong, or say like, dude, it's right on the screen, you just skipped the command you needed to run, you have to prefix everything with public underscore. I don't want to listen to you for 10 minutes talking about things when you didn't follow the instruction. So that's another reason I'm doing this publicly, so I don't waste too much time doing something that should have been obvious it was part of the instruction set. So until next time, thanks for tuning in. Bye. Enjoy the rest of your day.